This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Burnley 0, Chelsea 2. And I'm going to say it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always glamorous, but we'd have all absolutely snapped your hand off for that kind of win, wouldn't you, after an international break? And generally, we were pretty comfortable. I thought we didn't start the game particularly well. Burnley actually probably had their best spell, didn't they? In the first 20 minutes or so, we struggled to get out, struggled to get any real rhythm into our game. You looked at the team lineup, felt like there were loads of changes. There were actually only 4, but I think we're all a bit like, okay, why is he taking Garnacho out? Having just had such a great game, had international break off, that seemed a bit strange at the time. Andre Santos obviously coming in was what we called pre-match and what we asked for in the previews. So we'll talk about him in a bit because I thought he was superb. And obviously Tosin coming in, Joe's favourite player. Again, you're thinking, why have we done that? Why are we changing centre-backs yet again? But first 20 minutes you were a little bit worried, but then we kind of got a foothold in the game and we played all right, didn't we? We played all right. The goals really were the two in both areas, both the two real bits of quality we showed all day. If we didn't do, I thought generally our play getting up the pitch at times was pretty good, and then we'd get in and around the box, and whether it was, I think Delap almost summed it up actually, his game, because his running was fantastic. His movement, like Liam Delap, is really, really good, and he'd get himself into really good positions, and then every time he was getting the ball wrong. So whether it was the wrong decision, there was one in the first half where he had to pass it to Pedro Neto and he shot. A couple of others where he got into good places to pull the ball back and didn't quite get it right. And that was kind of the story of the game in many respects. But the two real bits of quality that we showed were the 2 goals. The first one, obviously Cucurella did really well, battling as he does all the time, gets the ball to Gittins. We've talked a little bit about Gittins, just saying that we're starting to see these little moments of quality from him, and it was an absolutely stunning ball, wasn't it? Just a beautiful cross on his right foot to the back post. And I almost had to have a second look to see it was Pedro Neto throwing himself with a diving header. He's just growing more and more as a player. We've talked about him quite a lot this season. And it was just another great moment for him, wasn't it? And just what we needed, I thought. That was 35 odd minutes. You were thinking it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? The Premier League, the first goal is so important, but it really is. And getting that goal kind of calmed us down and kind of allowed us to sort of settle into the second half. We had a great goal. And then the longer the game went on, we looked so comfortable. And then it's about 70 minutes, it just started to get a bit tasty. I think there was an element that we brought onto ourselves. I actually thought Berdasheil played pretty well when he came on, but just silly things, giving silly free kicks away, giving the crowd almost a reason to get up and get going again. We brought all that onto ourselves. We gave a couple of silly balls away at times, and you're like, I think Joe and I were messaging each other on WhatsApp, and I was going, this has got 1-1 written all over it, hasn't it? It started to have that Brentford sort of feel about it, where they were going to chuck a ball in the box in the last minute and something was going to fall. And the longer it went on, the more worried I was. And you're thinking, there's subs being made now. We were sort of started to camp back into our own box. And let's be fair, I don't think we quite have the faith yet that Chelsea can close out games and get clean sheets. But fair play, we scored a brilliant second goal. Again, a nervy moment at the back it looked like, but suddenly Gusto's touch back to Sanchez looks inspired. And then Pedro Neto again, absolutely superb. Does brilliant on the counter. Margui, unbelievable play from him. Absolutely superb running. He is a likable player, isn't he? He's very raw. We always say it. He's just a runner, like he's a head down runner, and you don't always know what he's going to do. But not only was brilliant running, but the pullback was perfect. That was not a random pass. He'd seen Enzo Fernandez, maybe heard the call, perfect ball, and then obviously Enzo. Oh, again, I didn't think he had his best game, but again, popping up in the right place, scoring important goals. That's what he is really doing more and more for Chelsea. And I don't know about everyone else, but I just breathed a massive, massive sigh of relief when that went in. And I was like, okay, I can enjoy the last 3 minutes now. But yeah, a really good win. I saw I think they put it up on the TV before the game. Chelsea's record in 12:30 kickoffs is unreal. There's something like 12 wins in a row or something crazy. So it's always this, it had the feel of like the Forest game, didn't it, after the international break? Very similar, 12:30 away, tricky away game. Started slowly in that one as well, but we are growing. I think we are maturing as a team. We have to sort of say it when we see it, that that's 3 Premier League clean sheets in a row. You can see it. There's character there. There's a bit more resilience, I think. There's a bit more strength. And I won't go into loads of individuals in this first note, but there's one I have to call out. I mentioned him earlier. He's just been given man of the match as well on the TV. Andre Santos. I don't think there's been really many games in the Chelsea shirt I haven't really liked him. Even when he comes on for a little spell, I just like the way he plays. But he's one of those players for me. He looks old beyond his years in the way he plays. He's a real, almost an old school centre midfielder in that he's a proper box to box, does a bit of everything. But the number of times he broke the game down today, was he stepping into Casado's shoes? You know, how great is it that you can leave Casado out? Andre Santos can come in and play as well as that. I thought he was brilliant. He's so good, as well as winning the ball. His passing is almost always on point. He's just a really, really good footballer, a proper midfielder. And I really hope that we continue to give him lots of minutes, because he's one that I just want to see at Chelsea for years to come. Because I think there's actually, he's such an interesting player, because there's two sides to his game. There's this side that we've seen a lot of today where he's really breaking that play. But there's this real attacking side to his game, which we haven't really seen much of yet. But obviously at Strasbourg and for Brazil through the different age groups as a youngster, scores a lot of goals, all sorts of goals as well, headers, shots from outside the box. That part we haven't seen yet, but there's so much more to come from him. So yeah, really pleased for him. And to be fair, I'm sure Enzo Maresca's kind of thinking that was just about the perfect afternoon's work, because we hope that Reece is being brought off at half-time as purely precaution. Assuming we came through with no injuries, you got to look at that and go, he's going to be delighted that he's been able to give Casado a full rest, Esteval a full rest, Garnacho obviously a full rest, and you've got to think that that's all with Barcelona in mind in midweek. Play them on Tuesday, they play later today. I think particularly with them, the way that Barcelona play, which is a fairly high line, they're going to be wanting to look at how they get Garnacho in behind as many times as possible. So I'm sure that was part of the reason there. And of course, Casado, we were calling for him to be rested. The fact that we didn't have to bring him on, obviously, is massive. So yeah, very positive lunchtime's work. The league table, which is going to get shaken up this weekend with all the Premier League games. There's some really big games, aren't there, around us, and the teams that we'd expect to be fighting out for. But it looks great, doesn't it? Really, really looks great. And it means that you go into the Arsenal game next week, kind of whatever they do against Spurs this weekend, and think, right, that's where we are right in amongst it. And it takes a bit of pressure off, and we can probably go into that game and just try and enjoy it and see if we can, pull off for something special. But great day. I'll hand over to Joe. Very happy indeed.
Good afternoon on a wet and windy Surrey. It is absolutely horrendous here. It's peeing down and has been for some time. I was going to go for a nice little walk, but as it's so bad, I'm going to sit in the car and do it instead. I'm going to drive around and give my thoughts. Yeah, Chelsea 2, Burnley 0. A poor watch, if I'm honest. I said to my wife, I was like, oh, I could do this game just being over and just someone tell me the result at the end. It was quite hard to watch There were moments in the game that I enjoyed. There was little bits and pieces, certain players, bit of individual skill. I thought Neto, as a whole, had a pretty good game. Obviously, he scored a goal, plus was involved in anything decent that we did. He hit the post, and yeah, his all-round performance, even defensively, was decent. Yeah, Chris mentioned Andres Santos there. He was superb today, and like you said, what a nice thing to leave Caicedo off completely, give him some rest, give him all that time that he needs, because, as I say, a couple of games over the international window where he was used pretty much the entire game and travelled a long way like he always does. So, yeah, nice to give him a rest. I think Santos as a whole was just fantastic today. The way he broke play up, he kept it nice and simple. He goes down again. Is this a good thing? I don't know. I don't personally love this, but anytime he gets tackled, he does go down and look for a foul. He does tend to get them. He did today anyway. I would prefer us as a team to just get on with it. I think that's probably my mentality more than Chelsea's. But I thought his all-round performance was one of real intelligence, real class, a real maturity in him. I thought he played okay against Nottingham Forest a few weeks ago, but I thought today he was much, much better. I think Forest are a better team, if I'm honest. Burnley aren't very good. I think we must not pour cold water on Chelsea's performance, but Burnley aren't a very good side. Chris mentioned them having a decent spell in the first half. I think they just put a few passes together. I never felt in any way that we were going to concede a goal unless it was down to our own, stupidity. Him, Sanchez kicking the ball straight in Enzo Fernandez's face from a yard, from a goal kick. That type of thing would just be very Chelsea to concede. So we got away with one there. But I just think the performance from Santos was mature. I felt like he's really growing into that position. I think the more games he plays, like you'd expect, he would learn to control it even more than he did today, and hopefully against a better side. I think in that midfield there wasn't a lot that Burnley offered, but you can only play what you're playing against, and that's no criticism of him. Again, he did what he had to do, and that's the main thing. As for the back four, we kind of move from there and go forward. I mean, I'm not going to go through every single player, but the partnership of Tosin and Badiashile in that second half, I think was better than Chalobah and Tosin, I must say. And I do like the fact that Badiashile is the left footer playing on the left-hand side. But I would say that Tosin, yet again, didn't do anything drastically wrong today. I'm not going to come on here and poke holes in him, because people will just think I'm doing it on purpose, which I don't want, and I don't want to be that person. But he doesn't make me very comfortable. He's not a very good football player. He does give the ball away quite a bit, even though he's not under huge amounts of pressure. But he was fine. He was as good as he could be. I still wouldn't have played him. Obviously, in hindsight now, it looks wonderful. But if Chelsea lose that game today or they draw it, I think you have to question the team that was picked, if I'm honest. And Chris said, yeah, there was 4 changes. It's just that central position in defence is very, very, very key. And I think the more you mess around with it, the more you will come unstuck. And, okay, Maresca's taken a look at that team and gone, I don't think Burnley have got enough to break us down. I could pretty much play whoever I want today and we'll get... Maybe not keep a clean sheet, but I know we can be tight enough that they won't win. And maybe there's some truth in that. And like I say, you always look a genius when you win these games, and you look a complete buffoon if you don't get the right result. But I think let's just leave it as it is. I wouldn't have changed Fofana and Chalobah. Personally, I'd have kept them going. But we have to realise that Fofana is nursing, not an injury, but he's obviously coming back from a long-term injury. So, yeah, I would have thought the 2 weeks off over the international break would have done him some good, and he would have just come and played straight away in this game. But they're clearly holding him back, I would assume, for Barcelona. But you cannot predict or second-guess Maresca's teams at all. I mean, Chris and I try and do the team every time, and I don't think we ever get it right, although we did get Santos right today. Badiashile, pleased for him. He came in and did an okay job. Where I am a bit frustrated with him is obviously that incident in the penalty area where he's pushing and shoving, and he's been told don't do that, and then the very next cross that comes in, he's pushing the guy off the field, into the far post. And on another day, if that's Anthony Taylor, who's to say he doesn't give a penalty? I think that's where Chelsea are seriously lacking and they need to learn. It is definitely something that is in the moment in our DNA, just these stupidity mistakes that we just continue to make over and over and over again. So something needs, he needs to be shown that and told that that's not really acceptable, because you are going to concede goals. But as a whole, Sanchez, I thought his handling was good, and he looked fairly assured of himself. There was no real wobbles today. I think he's certainly become that number one goalkeeper, and even though that me and Chris might not love him, but we absolutely need him in this team at the moment, because there is no Chelsea goalkeeper in the squad that could hold a candle to Sanchez at the moment, and his performances are becoming quite good, and that's his third clean sheet in a row. So, again, you can't really complain about that. In midfield, I thought Enzo was a fairly steady Eddie. He had a good game. He broke up the play very well. He was looking to play forward at every opportunity, which I loved. He turned balls in behind and tried to stretch the Burnley defenders when he could, particularly in the second half. And once again, pops up in the box from some fantastic, unselfish play from Mark Guiu and bangs in another goal. And at the moment, he can't stop scoring. And I'm definitely here for it, because he's slowly winning me round. I've never been against Enzo, ever. But there's something about him now that makes me think he's quite dynamic. And he knows what the goal is. He can definitely finish. He can take free kicks. He can score headers, tap-ins, all sorts of scruffy goals as well. So, yeah, a player that's massively improved in the last 6 months, I would say. And, yeah, his arrow is definitely pointing upwards. So, yeah, fair play to Enzo. I'm really pleased for him. I thought Liam Delap had an interesting game. For the most part, his end product was terrible. His hold-up play was brilliant. In the first half, there was 2 or 3 occasions where he got given a very sharp, hard pass. He controlled it and turned all in one movement, drove forward, and it was the final pass or the shot that just let him down. It seemed to be that thing of, I should pass and I shoot when I should pass today. And when he broke the line in the second half, and all he's got to do is just slide that ball across to Enzo to score. I mean, players of my era would have gone up to Delap and punched him straight in the face, quite frankly. It's so infuriating that a player that's come from Ipswich and scored all these wonderful goals and made such good decisions is suddenly doubting himself. And there's no question in my mind that he's suddenly doubting himself in front of goal. And that ability to put a ball on a plate, I mean, that's kind of what Nicholas Jackson used to do, if I'm honest with you. You go through and you think, oh, just slide that into someone's path and they'll get a tap in, and he would go for a shot and you're going, oh no. Well, Delap's slowly falling into that category, and he needs to be careful, because is he so much better than Jackson? I'm not sure. He's definitely a very good player, but he needs some goals to add to his name to give him some kind of credit, because at the moment he hasn't scored a goal for Chelsea, which is not a brilliant return. Of course, he's been injured for a large chunk of his Chelsea career so far, but we need to make sure that he is learning, listening and training and doing the right things, because at the moment, his decision-making is all over the place. And I just want one to fall to him, get himself that goal, hopefully get an assist for somebody, and he can get on a run, and hopefully he can come against Barcelona when we're all rooting, obviously, for a massive home win. Let's just briefly discuss his partner in crime, Mark Guiu, who come on for him late in the second half. He did everything that Delap didn't do in one movement. Obviously, the ball that gets played round to him, I think it's from, is it Enzo maybe? Forgive me, I can't remember. The ball that gets, no, it's Neto. Neto plays the ball down the line to him. And he obviously, he drives forward to go. He takes on his defender, stands him up, and he just pulls the ball back into a nice area for a midfield player, in this case Enzo, to run onto and smash into the bottom corner. And that's exactly what Liam Delap needs to do. To gain the trust of your teammates, that's exactly what you need to do. And I think we must remember that Guiu's 19. He has got a lot to learn, but he is also doing a lot of good things. And I'm going to sort of hold fire on Guiu, because I think he could become a very good little player. He's going to take a little while. It's not going to happen overnight. There'll be times where he's going to frustrate you, but I just got a funny feeling with him. If we were prepared to kind of give him a go and let him have some good, honest minutes, not just in League Cups and stuff, but some proper minutes in the league like we did today, and let's see what he can do, I think that he might be a very special player. But again, the jury's out on him at the moment, but he has got some really good qualities, and again, very unselfish. So fair play to him, and he kind of made the game safe for us. I'd say Chalobah had a good game, decent game, very steady Eddie, did nothing wrong really. Passing was decent, did some fairly good tackles without being outstanding. I'd put Jamie Gittins into the same category. I wasn't overly impressed with Gittins today. Chris, I think you may be a little bit more bullish on him. I felt as though his cross for the goal was outstanding. Of course, not taking that away from him, but he has to do a whole lot more. To me, again, he just still looks like a bit of a fish out of water. Doesn't quite believe in himself. Almost like he's not sure that he should be in a Chelsea shirt, in my opinion. Did okay. And that's as far as I'll go with it. Definitely wasn't blowing me away, but he can say today he's got another assist on his name. And again, as a winger, your end product is valued in the sense that, did you get an assist today? Did you get a goal today? Did you create something for the next action to be a goal? And he can come away and say, well, he definitely created a goal today. So fair play to him. But I would say, a bit like Chalobah, steady Eddie, not a lot to say about him, but again, he still managed a goal contribution. And I'm saving Cucurella till last just because I felt as though he was kind of everywhere today. We were looking for those long passes where he makes that late dart into the central striker role almost, and he holds the ball up, and like for the first goal, he's the one that's furthest up the field, receives the ball, gets a slight deflection where it kind of bounces off the defender, but he keeps control of the ball, sets Jamie Gittins up for the cross for Neto to score a diving header, which was fantastic. But I just think Cucurella was outstanding. Defensively, once or twice he got taken on, but I think because he was looking to go forward all the time, I felt as though some of his defensive duties maybe went out the window slightly. But when Enzo Maresca took this job on, I bet he could not believe day one, see Marc Cucurella play this role better than he probably ever thought he ever could. And he's in midfield, he's popping it around, then he's up front, and then he's on the wing, then he's overlapping the winger himself to put the last cross in. He's everywhere. He has lots of shots. Again, he creates stuff. He's always in the opponent's face, causing problems. Just an all-round good egg. And like we've said before many times, I'd rather have Cucurella in my starting 11 than playing against my starting 11, because I think he would be a real handful and he would infuriate me as a fan to play against him. So, yeah, I'm so pleased that he plays in a blue shirt. I think an observation from me was that Chelsea were very, very slow to move the ball today. I felt as though that they were winding me up a little bit, because I'm thinking you're going to get caught. This sort of slow build-up, that it did annoy me a little bit. Sanchez to Tosin to Chalobah in the first half. Then it was bad issue in the second half. There was a little bit of that going on again. And at 1-0, you're just thinking it's not enough, really. It's not, like Chris said, the Brentford vibes or whatever. You felt like any ball in the Premier League can just bounce around, fall to the wrong person before you know it, you won all. And I felt like we didn't take the second goal seriously enough. I really didn't. I think it's a flaw of Chelsea. I think we waste time. I feel like in the first half, it's almost like we work our way into it, and then we sort of come alive a little bit in the second half. There was a few times where I was just thinking, come on, just if you pick the pace up for 5 minutes, you could easily go and get 1 or 2 goals, and this game is done. I get you want to leave Garnacho on the bench. I get that Caicedo wants to be on the bench, and Estevao, etc. I understand all that, because you've got big games coming up. But I think big games are big games. 3 points against Burnley is just as important as 3 points against Arsenal. And I don't really subscribe to this notion that you play lackadaisical against the weaker sides, because that's when you will lose. And okay, we didn't do that today. And our record, like Chris said, in the 12-30s has been fantastic. But I just felt like we were messing around. And if you drop points against Burnley today, it's a huge miss. That's your banker, in a weird way. No, and there are no bankers really, but Burnley is your banker. Arsenal is not. So I feel as though we could have really come a cropper there. And I'm glad that we did win the game. Obviously, we've come out of it unscathed. But there was just something about the way we were handling that period of play after 1-0 that was quite annoying. We hit the post. And there was a couple of sort of wild shots that didn't really trouble the goalkeeper. A few corners that came under Dubravka's bar, which he dealt very well with the Burnley goalkeeper. But I didn't really feel like we were really taking it seriously. And once we did get the second, I must say I did breathe a sigh of relief. I'm sure they're not sitting in the change room going, let's not get a second goal. I know they're not saying that, but there's ways of going about it, and I don't think we did that particularly well today. At the end of the day, like Chris said, it's a 2-0 victory. You can't fault it. They will take points off people. They've already taken points off people. The top teams, I think, have, like we said last week in the podcast, they have been taken down by the top teams. So it's nice that we didn't stumble there. But I say they will definitely take points off other sides. And even it's the middling teams, your Brightons, your Forests, your Bournemouths, those types of teams, even if they do that, it'll be a huge help towards Chelsea qualifying for the Champions League next season, which is not what I'm subscribing to as a supporter, but I know it's what the target is for this season. I think overall, we've just had a 2-week international break. The players have been all around the world for the most part. 1 or 2 stayed at home, I know. So taking that into account, I think we can be very, very pleased with our afternoon's work. It's a solid 2-0 victory. Not how I would have expected it to play out. I thought we would go for them early and win the game nice and easy, but Chelsea don't do things very easily now or by halves. So, yeah, it's another good win. It's like Chris said, it's another maturing performance. I felt like they were in control, but they had a schoolboy error in them. There was a lot of good play and good ball possession, but just towards the end, like Chris said, we started to waver a little bit because obviously the crowd come back into it with some silly fouls from Chelsea and stuff, and it kind of gives them a little bit of a lift. But I think we can be very pleased with our day's work. And yeah, I'm not that we're looking at Arsenal. I'm certainly not at the moment. I mean, you can't look at Arsenal and say we're 3 points behind and I think you're going to win the league. But it's certainly nice to be in the conversation within that top 2 or 3 positions when you've just played Wolves at home and Burnley away. We've scored 5 goals. We've conceded none. And overall, the performances were pretty good. So a good day's work for Chelsea. We're all happy. We get to go and watch Chelsea-Barcelona on Tuesday now and look forward to a very, very exciting game. We've got some players coming back, as Chris has mentioned already. So, yeah, it should be a very exciting game, whatever happens. And nice to have teams like Barcelona coming back to the bridge.
Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you don't. Either way, the new Blue Apron is for you. Because along with our classic meal kits, we're offering new pre-made and one-pan meals to help you get dinner on the table fast. And now there's no subscription needed, so you can just order and enjoy. Do delicious food your way. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Good morning on a very dreary, wet and windy, horrible day yet again where I am. But I have to say my mood with Chelsea is full of sunshines and rainbows. So, yeah, we're quietly on a bit of a run. That Sunderland performance being the only real meek and weak performance that we've given in the last sort of few months, really, in the league, certainly. I was interested to see what Maresca had to say after the game yesterday, how he approached it. It was. I get that these managers now, it's quite a common thing where, so with Reece James, for example, that substitution was planned for him to come off at half time. But I don't know about anybody else, but I never felt like Reece played. Nobody played well in that first half, maybe for the exception of Neto and Santos, who were sort of, Santos good for breaking up the play and Neto scoring his goal, but didn't offer an awful lot. I didn't think anybody played particularly well, and I just thought you could have played Malo Gusto in that first half and left Reece James off completely because we definitely sat back. It was almost like we were waiting to see what they were going to do and not let Burnley run themselves into the ground because they're not that good of a team for you to worry about that sort of stuff. But I just felt as though it was a little bit weird how we played Reece in that first half and we never really went for it. We just sort of sat back and hoped for the best, which kind of makes me think, why did we play Reece in the first place? But anyway, it's done now. The game's over. But interesting that he had planned to start him and bring him off at half-time, regardless of the score or the game situation. I was pleased to see that Enzo and the team got a rousing reception at the end of the game against Burnley. I know it wasn't like the best team we've ever played and it wasn't some remarkable result, but at the same time, I think it's always good, and we mentioned it last year and it did fall a bit flat in the second part of the season, but it was nice to see the crowd and there was a few banners in support of Enzo. And whether you are an Enzo fan or not, I think what you have to remember is you're a Chelsea fan. And I don't always love everything that he does. I like him as a manager. I actually quite like him as a person. He's grown on me hugely in the last 6 months. But he still does things that drive me mad. But at the same time, we're Chelsea fans, and I think that it was good to see everybody come together at an away game and cheer the boys on, cheer the team on, give Enzo some love. And it just creates a really good place to build from. I think that the games against Barcelona and Arsenal next week are definitely important games for our season going ahead. They're definitely not season defining, as we sometimes say, but they are important games. And I think if everybody's on side, I think it just helps to create the right atmosphere in the stadium. And 2 home games coming up, again, they are huge teams. Big performances are needed from the guys. And I do think our energy levels will just naturally improve. If you take the Liverpool home game in isolation, and you saw how much energy and how much fight and spirit and quality we put into that game, and it seems that Enzo Maresca tends to set the tone in terms of who we're playing and how hard we try. And it might sound a really mad thing to say, but I've just noticed this sort of trend, and you can include Sunderland in that as well, which can show you that you can get caught out. I felt as though, at least against Wolves, there was a lot more urgency and impetus in our play. I felt as though Sunderland, we got that early goal and we just sat back and thought, we'll win this. A bit like Burnley, we'll win this comfortably in the end. And we didn't do it. And I think that is maybe something that we need to look at. But equally, I think it has worked for Maresca on a number of occasions. And he marked his 50th game for the club yesterday in style with a decent win. But like we said, these games going into next week give me that kind of warm feeling inside that we are, as a fan base, coming together as one. And I don't care what anybody says. If everybody's pulling in the same direction, it just creates the right atmosphere in the ground, outside the ground. The same sort of social media people that are against certain managers or players or whatever, a lot of those people tend to shut their mouth when Chelsea are doing well. And yeah, it's almost like the media have also had a slight turn. It was interesting how TNT Sports, who were covering the game yesterday, were talking about Enzo and why do the fans dislike him? Why do some people not want him at the club? Some people like him, some people don't. We think he's great. Look at his record. And it was like, well, that's a real change in how he's being perceived, just as a human one-on-one. He's always been kind of classed as a rookie, and is he big enough for Chelsea and all that? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. We can all sit here and say, let's go and get Carlo Ancelotti. He's managed the club before. He's a fantastic manager. He's a winner. He wins trophies. He does this. He does that. But the way Chelsea are approaching this new way of playing, way of thinking, Carlo Ancelotti probably wouldn't fit into that. So whether we like it or not, what Chelsea are doing, I think they are trying to build a club for the future and trying to future-proof us as to having some of the best young players for years and years to come. And in the likes of Caicedo, Esteval, Palmer, Quenda when he comes, Levi Colwill, just to name a few, you can't really argue with that. So interesting week coming up. Barcelona won 4-0. Yesterday they played Atletico Club Bilbao and destroyed them, quite frankly. I've seen the highlights of their game and they did play well. And also they have some very, very exciting players. Obviously, everybody's going to be so keen to see Lamine Yamal play. And, we are excited to see him too. But of course, we'd rather he had a very quiet night. We have our own Esteval, Willian, who I do believe is going to play against them. Whether Cole Palmer, is it too early for him with his broken toe? Probably. Stranger things have happened. Let's just say that. Was it a smokescreen? Is it as bad as we think? You never know. Don't be surprised if Cole Palmer starts against Barcelona. I doubt he will. But it's interesting how sometimes managers say things and then before you know it, that injury they had suddenly isn't there anymore. And I just wonder if that was a smokescreen from Enzo with the broken toe. I'm not sure. I'm not saying he hasn't done it, but I wonder if they can patch him up and get him out there. We shall see. There's the resurgence of Marcus Rashford. He's had a very, very good season. I think he's had a good campaign for England as well this last international window. He's been a good player for Barca. That he's really sort of made a name for himself there this year. And also they got the evergreen Lewandowski, who has got all the experience in the world of a Harry Kane. So again, they are a dangerous, dangerous force going forward. And again, there's many other players that Chris will probably likely mention after this to sort of say who he thinks will be players to watch. But yeah, they are an exceptional team. Not a team that I particularly like, I have to say. I've never really liked Barcelona. I think all the scrapes and the scars over the years that we've had against them, I think it's just made me dislike them quite a lot. And I always feel as though they are a club that seem like they're whiter than white in terms of never doing wrong. But I think as we've seen with their financial irregularities, they are certainly not a team that you could probably trust in that department. And I think over the years they've done, more fiddling than Jimmy Savile in the 70s and 80s. So, not a club that I overly love. But from a football standpoint, I fully respect their players. I fully respect their team. And I know they're going to give us one hell of a game at the Bridge on Tuesday night. As for the Arsenal game, I think Chris and I will probably review that a little bit on Wednesday after the Barcelona match review. And we'll be back to discuss everything Barcelona, team selection, how we played. Hopefully we're discussing a good win on a Tuesday night under the lights. That'll be brilliant. But whatever it will be, we'll be back to discuss a win, a loss or a draw and give our thoughts on the Arsenal game going into the weekend. But yeah, good weekend for Chelsea. Really, really pleased. Another win. Wasn't vintage by any means. A win's a win though in the Premier League. Results went our way. Bournemouth dropped points. Man City dropped points. Liverpool dropped points. Yeah, we had a good weekend and it just kept everybody just that little bit further away from us. And we've just sort of slowly moved away from a few teams. So it's not a huge lead. It's nothing to write home about, but at least it's all moving in the right direction. I'll hand back over to Chris to give his thoughts on the rest of the Burnley game, his thoughts on Barcelona, of course, and any other business he wants to discuss. Over to you, Chris.
Happy Sunday. Yeah, great results all round really for us yesterday. You couldn't have kind of written it better, could you? In all honesty. And I have to say, I was watching the Newcastle City game with a friend. A friend was going, what would you prefer? Maybe what's a good result for you here? And kind of, if you're being pessimistic, you kind of go, actually probably Newcastle more likely to challenge for top 4 for us this year. So you maybe start to think that way. But then look at Leeds, we're going, no, do you know what? It's a great result for us. Let's be ambitious. Let's have real hope this year of that we can improve from last season, which would mean finishing above the likes of City or Liverpool, wouldn't it? And I won't talk about Arsenal just yet, but we can live, we can dream, we're allowed to dream. But yeah, we are on, as you say, Joe, quietly on actually a really good run of form. I think we both said quite a bit about the game, so I won't say a huge amount more about the Burnley game yesterday. Apart from watching the highlights back, one thing I hadn't necessarily realised at the time was just how mad Maresca went when we scored the second goal. It was almost like running down the touchline last minute against Liverpool kind of reaction, wasn't it? Which I really like to see. It sort of shows how, I guess, focused and important he knew that game was. And I think that just sends a good message, doesn't it, to the rest of the group? Because saw him going absolutely mad, didn't you, at 1-0 with one of the referee decisions, and generally again, obviously getting the players fired up and all that kind of stuff, but getting himself booked in the process because, it's Chelsea, we've got to continue picking up our bookings wherever we can. But yeah, I really like to see that. And yeah, quietly, there's so many teams all over the Prem still dropping points. The results each week are kind of just crazy, aren't they? Let's not laugh too hard at Liverpool, but it is fantastic to watch. And yeah, Chelsea just have to keep the run going, really. We talked through just how many games there are in November and December in the last pod, and talked through what are potentially some really tricky games. But if we carry on playing the way we have in the last 6 weeks, we will win a lot more than we'll lose of those games. So yeah, we can certainly live on and hope. Barcelona at the Bridge in the Champions League is special, isn't it? It's really special. I think if you were to say to me what team do I think of when I think of big Champions League nights at Chelsea, then it probably is Barcelona. I was fortunate enough and old enough to be there for all of those classic big games back in the day. The first time we played them in the Champions League was way back in 2000, and an incredible night where we won 3-1. Gianfranco Zola scoring an amazing free kick. Torranja Flo scored 2 great goals. With 3-0 up. We scored 3 goals in 9 minutes that night. Won the game 3-1 and ultimately lost in extra time in the second leg. But it was an amazing time. It just felt, first ever run in the Champions League. We were in the big time. And then obviously 5 years later, it's the Mourinho era and that infamous 4-2 win at the Bridge, which again is right up there for me, one of my best ever nights watching Chelsea, and probably would be right up there if we'd gone on to win the Champions League that year. And we became favourites after we beat them in that game, but obviously lost to the Liverpool ghost goal, which we won't talk about today. But there's been so many great games over the years, and of course when we eventually won it in 2012, that infamous semi-final against them with that Torres goal, which is still, one of the moments watching Chelsea. And I don't know if anyone else has gone back and watched the highlights of that game when we obviously down to 10 men, 2-0 down. Lampard scores that ridiculous chip from Ramirez's pass, and we somehow hang on. Messi missing a penalty. Whenever I watch it back, I think we're going to lose this time. It's like I'm still as nervous almost watching it back, but yeah, just amazing memories. And I had a little look at the head-to-head. It's completely level. So both teams have won 4 each, and we've drawn 6. So it's really even between. Kind of in your head, it feels like that, and it is exactly as it plays out in the record. It's always been really close. There's so many great games. No love lost, as you say, Joe, over the years, and we haven't actually played them since the 2017-2018 season, which was obviously Conte's second year, and 1-1 draw at home. Messi finally getting his first goal against us from a mistake from Christensen, I think it was. They gave him the ball away, I think after Willian had put us in front, and then we basically got thrashed at the Nou Camp 3-0, and we never turned up. But I look back at the lineup, actually, it's the classic Conte lineup, pretty much as you remember it when you look back at it, all of the wing backs and those things. But it's been a while, so yeah, great to be back in it. Proper night at the Bridge on Tuesday. And I think it'll be a really good game. I went back through and have watched a few highlights of Barcelona's games. Obviously, I watched them yesterday and looked at a few of their Champions League games. What I think you'll get from Barcelona is they will create a lot. They'll probably score a lot, but they will give you chances. Their record in the Champions League is actually identical to us this year. 2 wins, a draw and a defeat. They drew that 3-3 against Bruges in the Champions League not so long ago, or Brugge, as I've been told it should be said. And in that game, you kind of saw, I think, the best and worst of Barcelona. You've got the absolute attacking genius of Yamal, who's, to be honest, I'm actually just really excited to watch. I think it'll be a real shame not to have Palmer on the pitch against him, really, because much like Dembele in the Club World Cup final was kind of the billing of those top two players, it would be the same, wouldn't it? But as you say, Joe, maybe he'll be there in some regard. We'll have to wait and see. And yeah, not just him though. I mean, Lewandowski, obviously we know all about, and he's 8 goals in 10 league games this year. But Torres, Ferran Torres, the ex-City boy, is a massive threat for them. He's scored a lot of goals this year, so dangerous on the break as well. If any space in behind, he's very dangerous. And obviously Rashford, like you said, Joe, has done pretty well for them this year and was the difference maker when they won at Newcastle earlier in the season in the Champions League. So I think they will be an absolute force going forward, but defensively, they do leave space in behind. They do leave you space in behind. And I mentioned in my earlier note about Garnacho, he will definitely play on Tuesday night. I'm almost certain of that he'll start. And then on the other side, it will be very interesting. You think probably Neto will start, but there must be a temptation to play Estevao in a game like that as well. Again, you kind of look at Neto and think he's so important to Maresca and then how Chelsea are playing, but does he think he can play 90 minutes in the space of 8 days? Because certainly you can imagine him wanting him to play against Arsenal. So I wonder if that goes in Estevao's favour and he changes up the wingers in midweek. I think either way, it's a hard one to call, but it's one of those lineups, isn't it, that you're sort of, whenever it's a big game like that, you're extra kind of fascinated to see how we line up and what the setup will be. Wouldn't be that surprised to see a 3-man midfield and to see Enzo Fernandez pushed up a little bit into the 10. And I mean, I'd say Andre Santos alongside Caicedo, based on previous form in these sort of games, and what I mean by form is kind of what we've done in the past, he tends to like Gusto and Reece James in the team together, doesn't he? So I wonder if it'll be those two both in the lineup and then almost toss a coin for which one ends up in the midfield role and which one is obviously at fullback. But you kind of think, saw it against Liverpool and it was Gusto in midfield. At Spurs, it was Reece James, but they tend to both be on the pitch for these big games, don't they? So it's probably more likely that it will be that setup, but which does mean an extra midfielder in there, which, again, to be honest, has worked for us in general in these big games. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. But yeah, really looking forward to that. It's not pressure off, is it? Because we drew obviously last time at Carabao, Chelsea do need to make sure that we pick up results in the Champions League. But at the same time, it is a night you can enjoy, even if we went to win. It's not a disaster. So I feel like it's a game that you can just enjoy and think of, kind of go, well, actually, this is what it's about, isn't it? This is why we worked so hard to get back in the Champions League last season, to be in nights like this. So I think, yeah, as a fan, it's one that I just sort of kind of look forward to and relish, really. I think I'll finish the pod this week with a word from Mark Gui. I'm never going to get his name right, am I? Anyone can message us and say how I should be saying his name. I'd really appreciate that. But I think I almost underplayed just how well he did for the second goal yesterday. It was brilliant. Really, really good centre-forward play. So strong, so direct. I mean, there's a couple of guys on our Chelsea WhatsApp group, Di, if you're listening, comparing him to Kun Aguero back at Atletico Madrid days, which I have to be honest, I'm not there yet in terms of comparisons. I think he's so raw still. Obviously, Diego Costa, the other comparison, but whether I personally can't see him getting to that level, but do you know what? Who knows? He's so young. He's 18 years old. He's definitely got something about him, hasn't he? And actually, I would argue he's the perfect third choice striker in terms of what you want in a squad. And I feel like Chelsea have made this mistake in the last few years, really, of going to seasons with just two centre-forwards, in some ways almost only one, really, at times with Jackson. But I think having him along there as well, you see from a game like yesterday, he was an absolute nuisance the second he came on. I think having him around is really, really helpful. And so I hope that he does continue to get game time. It shouldn't be underplayed just what a big night Tuesday could be for him if he gets any time on the pitch. Obviously, he came through La Masia, the Barcelona Academy. He'll be desperate to play. I'm sure he knows a lot of those guys still. And yeah, either way, it'll be a special night for him. But I wanted to finish the pod with a shout out for him yesterday because he did so well on the goal. And yeah, good credit to him. He's a likeable player in the squad, isn't he? However good you think he actually is in the long term, or whether he could be a genuine starter for Chelsea in the future, time will tell. But you can't say he isn't a very likeable guy, because every time he pulls on that Chelsea shirt, he gives absolutely everything, doesn't he? But yeah, here's looking forward to a big night in midweek, and we'll be back on Wednesday to reflect on whatever happens against Barcelona and look forward to what is going to be a huge game against Arsenal at the Bridge on Sunday. First v second. Bring it on. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.